Underground subway station thrummed with the pulse of city life. Commuters rushed past, absorbed in their own worlds, their footsteps echoing against the tiled walls, reverberating through the stagnant air. Standing amidst this frenetic energy, Carlos Mendoza, a blind musician, gripped his weathered guitar, his fingers tracing the familiar pattern of its strings. He could feel the vibrations around him, the energy of people passing by, the shifts in their body language, the distant rumble of approaching trains. For a moment he closed his eyes and inhaled deeply, letting the sounds envelop him. He reveled in the music of existence that surrounded him, but before he could inhale the encouraging notes of connection, a sudden shove broke his concentration. A rude passerby, wrapped in the cocoon of their hurry, knocked him aside. Carlos stumbled, his hat falling to the ground, the dull thud echoing in his mind like a small heart's break. The crowd continued, oblivious, a stream of shadows and indifference. Carlos's heart sank, and for a fleeting second, time seemed to stall around him. His fingers tightened on the guitar's neck, and he felt a wave of sorrow wash over him. But he took a deep breath, as he'd learned to do time and time again, letting the emptiness fade. He needed to be heard. He needed to be seen, if only for a moment. With a voice that trembled slightly at the edges, he began to sing, a classic country song that spoke of love lost and memories cherished. His heart unfurled with each note, pouring passion into the melody, trying to reach out to the hearts that brushed past him. The world around him began to fade, and for a brief instant he felt the warmth of connection. A young couple paused mid-stride, exchanging glances, momentarily attuned to the frequency of his song. As he sang, Carlos lost himself in the lyrics, letting the music cradle him. He could feel the vibrations ripple through the air, seeming to reach beyond the physical limitations of his sight. The sound enveloped him, drawing from his soul, creating a bubble where he was the center of attention, if only for the few moments before the harshness of reality intruded once more. But then, just as quickly as it began, the spell broke. People resumed their forward motion, some glancing his way, but most passing through the moment like raindrops on a windshield, leaving him in a state of aching loneliness. A few coins clinked into his hat, insultingly little for the depths of emotion he had poured into his performance. Carlos felt the weight of isolation press upon him, the blaring noise of the world wrapping tighter around him. Did they not hear him? Did they not see? At that instant, the subway lights flickered, and he imagined each flicker was like a heartbeat, his heart broken again. Carlos endured this cycle day after day, standing in this same spot, hoping for connection, but often met with indifference. The laughter of children, the heartfelt embraces he could only hear, and the shared smiles he could not see, felt like a distant dream. Yet amid the despair, a singular thought emerged as he finished the last note, fading into silence. Perhaps he was meant to bridge the invisible gap with his music. As he lowered his head, Carlos resolved that he would not stay silent. The quietness of his world could not extinguish the lifeblood his music brought to him. He straightened his shoulders and got ready to play another song, one that would echo through the tunnels of the subway and ring with every vibrato in his heart. As his fingers found their place on the strings once more, his heart whispered the truth. He would sing until the day he could no longer create beautiful harmonies. In that moment, music was his only light, and he was determined to let it shine. As Carlos began to strum the guitar again, the familiar melody wrapped around him like a warm embrace, transporting him momentarily from the cold, hard reality of the subway into the warmth of cherished memories. The echoes of his childhood flooded through his mind, a time before the world imposed its limits, a time filled with laughter and love. In his memory, he saw himself as a small boy, about 6 years old, sitting cross-legged in the middle of his living room. The fireplace crackled gently, casting dancing shadows against the walls, while the flickering light illuminated the faces of his family. His mother, with her soft, silky hair and calming voice, was in the kitchen, humming a gentle tune as she surfed the waves of the aromatic kitchen scents, baking something special. His father, a sturdy figure built from the sweat of hard work, strummed an old acoustic guitar, filling the room with soulful melodies. "Come on, Carlos, join us," his father called, a broad smile spreading across his face. Carlos beamed with pride as he took his tiny guitar, a present from his parents for his birthday, and copied his dad's movements, even if his hands struggled to maneuver over the frets. His mother joined them, her voice intertwining with the strum of the guitar, harmonizing beautifully. It was a moment of bliss, bright and vivid, where time felt infinite, a cocoon of affection and encouragement that made the world around him disappear. He could hear their laughter, feel their love, a joy that curled around him like smoke, comforting and warm. It was that very love that had taught him resilience. In those moments, he understood that music had the power to convey feelings that words often failed to express. Returning to the present, Carlos felt bittersweet nostalgia wash over him. He missed the tangible warmth of his family, their voices and laughter now distant echoes. The rush of subway trains broke his reverie, but he remained in this transitional space between the past and now, where every note he played was a mingling of memory and hope. He knew intimately how sweet and cruel nostalgia could be, reminding him of love, yet whispering the bitter absence of it as well. The subway was a harsh contrast to the tender memories that filled his mind. Just then, he thought about the kindness he had encountered during his musical journey, those fleeting moments when a stranger would stop to listen, leaving behind more than just spare change. He recalled a little girl, no older than 7, whose eyes glimmered with wonder as she clutched her mother's hand tight before stepping closer. Her innocent joy filled Carlos with a sense of warmth, driving him to sing with even more passion that day. When she had danced, unable to contain her excitement, Carlos had felt a connection stronger than any physical touch could convey. He remembered the warmth of gratitude when an older gentleman had approached him after a performance, his eyes swirling with stories and memories. "Son," the man had said, his voice deep and mellow, "you reminded me of my own youth. Keep singing. You've got something special." That encouragement had filled Carlos with determination, pushing him forward with a renewed sense of purpose. But why did it feel so fleeting? Why did the shadows of loneliness continue to wrap around him? Looking around the subway station once more, he noticed new faces darting by, all with their own burdens, their own stories. Perhaps they all carried something hidden too. Perhaps behind each hurried face was a tale of longing, joy, or unfulfilled dreams. At that moment, Carlos understood that he wasn't just a performer. He was a conduit of connection, a spark to ignite something deep in others. As he strummed a few more chords, gentle yet filled with yearning, he drew from that well of love and friendship that had nurtured him as a child. His heart felt lighter, and he sang not just for himself but for everyone who stepped through the station that day, for every heart that felt unseen. In the ebb and flow of his music, he poured his longing for connection, his hopes, and the echoes of his past, weaving them together into something tangible, something beautiful. Little by little, the familiar sounds of the subway, train whistles and muffled conversations, began to fade, replaced by the soothing waves of his song. He was no longer alone in silence. Each strum and note was a reminder that no matter the darkness surrounding him, the warmth of his memories and the brightness of the community around him would always light the path forward. Carlos closed his eyes, focusing on the melody, letting it resonate deep within him. In that moment, amid the chaos of the subway, he was both the boy with the dreams and the man who pursued them, surrounded by a universe of untold stories begging to be sung. Each note rippled through the station, and for just a little while Carlos felt a flicker of hope bloom within, as though the music was filling in the cracks of his isolation with a bond that not even time could sever. As Carlos continued to play, the music flowed through him, gently cascading over the subway's chaotic atmosphere. Each note resonated deeply, a blend of pain and beauty that offered the fleeting comfort of connection. But as his final chord echoed through the station, the familiar stream of commuters resumed their hurried pace. The warm feeling of connection waned, replaced by the shadows of loneliness that nagged at his heart. Carlos recalled moments from his childhood, where music was alive in the warmth of home, his father's guitar strumming, his mother's melodic voice filling the air. Those memories tugged at his heart, reminding him of the purity of joy and how it had full force before life lost its luster. Now, the subway felt isolating, each rush of a passerby a reminder of the barriers between him and the world. Just then, he sensed someone nearby. It was Maria Alvarez, a dedicated social worker he'd seen time and again, her bright smile instantly lifting his spirits. She often stopped to listen, finding comfort in his music's power. "Hey there," she greeted, her voice bringing warmth amid the chill of the station. "Hi, Maria," Carlos replied softly, feeling the familiarity ease the burden of loneliness. "Did you enjoy the song?" "Absolutely. Your music always transports me," she replied, a sparkle in her eye. "You have a gift, you know." "Sometimes it feels like it's just a drop in the ocean," Carlos said quietly. "I wonder if anyone truly hears me." "Carlos, believe me, they do. I hear you. We all carry our burdens. Music helps us cope," Maria shared earnestly. "I've seen so many people facing struggles, and your songs are a reminder of hope." Her words struck a chord, a sense of shared vulnerability blossoming between them. "It's easy to forget that we can uplift each other," he admitted, reflecting on their mutual struggles. "What do you do when the weight gets heavy?" "I lean on others, like my clients," Maria replied, a shadow flickering across her face. "But sometimes even I feel lost. It's exhausting work. I need to believe my efforts matter." Carlos reached out and placed a hand on her shoulder, surprised by his own boldness. "You're not alone. You impact lives. Your strength can spark change in others." Maria paused, letting his words sink in, her expression softening. Just then, Jamal Carter, a younger artist, often skeptical of the subway performers, approached with a raised eyebrow. "What's this? Support group for musicians now?" he teased, arms crossed. Maria shot him a look, but Carlos stepped forward, intrigued by the confrontation. "We're discussing the power of music and connection. Interested?" Jamal smirked, his stance relaxing slightly. "So you really think music can change the world? Prove it." Carlos took a breath, realizing this was a challenge. Music can indeed change lives. It finds meaning in pain and celebrates joy. It brings us together. "You're faced with a sad world, man," Jamal replied, skepticism still lingering. "Is a song enough to change any of that?" Maria chimed in. "Sometimes it's not about fixing, it's about sharing moments and acknowledging pain. Music can help lighten that burden." Carlos nodded in agreement, determined to make an impact. "Each song I sing is a connection, a shared experience. Just like your art, Jamal. It resonates with people's hearts." Jamal hesitated, the skepticism fading from his eyes. "All right, show me." The air thickened with anticipation as Carlos positioned himself to play again. He began strumming a simple yet profound melody that flowed naturally, rich with the emotions they had all just shared. The subway faded into the background, and he poured his heart into the song, reaching out to Jamal as well as every stranger hustling by. As the music enveloped the station, Carlos felt something shift. He sang not only for himself, but for the collective burdens of those around him, the weight of lives unnoticed, the longings and hopes pressed against the rhythm of the busy city. In that moment, it became clear that beneath the shadows of loneliness, there was an essence of togetherness. As the final note hung in the air, he opened his eyes to find Maria's reassuring gaze and Jamal, now visibly moved. There was a shift in the atmosphere, a budding acknowledgement that music could indeed create ripples, a function of shared humanity where connection was forged, however fleeting. For a brief moment, Carlos felt less alone. The walls of the subway seemed to pulse with empathy, a tender reminder that within the shared struggles and triumphs, relationships were born from the simplest act of sharing a song. And in that intimate exchange, he recognized that music might be just the balm needed to heal not only himself, but those who haunted the busy avenues of life, their stories intertwined in a symphony waiting to be heard. The subway station pulsed with a renewed energy, its incessant noise momentarily softened by the lingering echoes of Carlos's song. Eyes that had once been hurried now turned to him, some curious, others drawn in by the raw emotion that had filled the space. The world outside seemed to blur as Carlos felt a tether stretching between him and the passing souls, a network of connection binding them in this fleeting moment. The song had sparked something deeper within him, a flicker of resilience that had dimmed over the years. For too long, he had wandered through life, feeling like a ghost in his own skin, haunted by loneliness and doubt. But today, the purpose within him surged back to life, igniting his spirit like a flame rekindled. He lowered his guitar, heart racing, his gaze shifting between Maria and Jamal, who now held an expression that mirrored the awakening inside him. As the last whispers of his melody dissipated, he felt an overwhelming need to share more than just music. "Thank you for listening," he said, his voice quiet but strong, carrying the weight of newfound conviction. "Sometimes we forget the magic that happens when we connect, even in the smallest ways. "I didn't realize how much I needed that," Jamal confessed, his defiance softened by sincerity. "It's easy to dwell on the noise and forget what really matters." The remnants of skepticism melted away, revealing vulnerability. "You opened my eyes, man." Maria smiled brightly, her spirit lifting as she spoke. "That's the beauty of creating. It reminds us we're all living our own stories. Music is a bridge, and you're playing the role of a messenger." The warmth of their exchange wrapped around Carlos, thickening the air with possibility. "This isn't just about me. Each of us carries stories, and we can either let them weigh us down or weave them into something beautiful. Today, I want to make music for others." He straightened up, determination flooding his veins. "Let's play together, share our stories, and breathing new life into each other's journeys." With that, he positioned himself with renewed boldness before grabbing his guitar again. The strings felt familiar beneath his fingers, and he began to play a lively tempo, an upbeat melody that contrasted the earlier mood. Maria, understanding the unstated invitation, began to sway, her eyes lighting up. "All right, let me jump in," she exclaimed, laughter bubbling forth as she clapped along, her spirit shining through. "What can I do?" In the midst of the bustling subway, suddenly invigorated, Carlos chuckled and gestured toward Jamal. "You have something to contribute, right? Art has its place in music." Jamal hesitated for a heartbeat, but Carlos's infectious energy gave him courage. "Okay, if you believe in it, maybe I do too." He found a scrap of blank paper from his bag and began sketching rapidly, expressing the rush of vibrant colors that pulsed with the rhythm of Carlos's strumming. Carlos's melody collided with the sounds of the city, the rumble of trains, the bustle of people, but it transformed. It wasn't just a song anymore. It became an anthem of shared spirit as strangers paused, glancing over with inquisitive delight. One by one, they stepped closer, drawn in by the unexpected camaraderie. As he continued to play, more faces emerged from the sea of commuters. He saw a woman humming along, a child dancing with abandon, an older man tapping his foot. The rhythm of the subway transformed from a constant rush into a collective heartbeat, alive with shared humanity. With each passing minute, the energy in the room amplified, creating a safe space where inhibitions faded into the background. Carlos realized that while pain and isolation had once defined him, courage had resurfaced. His music had transformed, a living tapestry that echoed hope and resilience, connecting all their disparate stories into a single truth. "Now this is my kind of subway ride," Carlos yelled over the sound of a few spontaneous cheers from the crowd that had gathered, blending laughter into the melody of his song. And then it struck him. A wave of clarity washed over him, just like it once had many years before in his childhood living room. He closed his eyes momentarily, letting the music flow through him freely, realizing that it wasn't just his voice or his melodies that resonated. It was theirs too, the intertwining of lives forging a community where isolation once reigned. After several songs, Carlos took a moment to look around at the faces surrounding him. He saw vulnerability transformed into joy, pain metamorphosed into hope, barriers falling as laughter replaced indifference. His heart swelled, a newfound purpose anchoring him firmly in the present, a renewed sense of belonging. Maria reflected the change best when she said, "See what happens when we connect. We're not just carrying our burdens, we're sharing them. And that makes all the difference." Jamal nodded as he jotted down vibrant colors on the paper, creating images inspired by the energy around him. "It's like we're creating a mural together, one brushstroke and one note at a time." Carlos grinned, the warmth of community surrounding him like a blazing sun. "Today isn't just about music or art, it's about fully living. There's magic in sharing our pieces with each other, allowing those connections to bring life back into our dreams." The subway, once a backdrop of solitude, had transformed into a vibrant canvas of hope and joy. With every song, the walls echoed with laughter, passion, and the heartbeat of a collective consciousness eager for connection. Carlos strummed the final notes, soaked in the moment, heart full. Their music might be fleeting, but its resonance echoed beyond the boundaries of the subway station, weaving into the personal narratives of all who were there. As they wrapped up, he felt reborn, no longer a voice lost in silence, but a beacon reminding others that their stories matter. In that bustling city, Carlos found purpose again, symbolizing the transformative power of music and the irreplaceable bonds it could create. A new chapter had begun, full of songs shared and burdens lightened, an ode to life as they all connected through the melodic embrace of each other's journeys. As the last note faded, Carlos looked around, his heart still thumping with the intensity of the moment. The audience lingered, reluctant to break the spell his music had cast over the subway station. The energy in the air was palpable, charged with a sense of community that had flourished in such an unexpected place. He caught Maria's eye and smiled, her enthusiasm bubbling like the music they had just created together. "Do you see this?" she exclaimed, gesturing to the gathering crowd. "This is what happens when you pull people together. It's something special, something real." Carlos nodded, feeling the weight and warmth of her words deep within his chest. The connection they felt wasn't just ephemeral. It had carved a path towards something more profound than he had ever anticipated. "Maybe this is what I've been searching for," he replied, "a way to connect, to guide others to cherish their stories through music." Jamal, excited and animated, held up the sketch he had produced during the performance. It was a vibrant explosion of colors, a visual testament to the music that had unfolded. "This mural captures it," he declared. "All the emotions, the stories, the hopes. We've created something together." Carlos stepped closer, genuinely amazed at the artwork. "That's beautiful, Jamal. You've captured not just our songs, but everyone's experience here today." The diverse crowd now displayed a tapestry of emotions, laughter, curiosity, and even tears. An elderly woman wiped her eyes, a young couple swayed slightly, two teenagers giggled as they took selfies with Jamal's painting in the background. This joy and warmth flowed through Carlos like a surge of electricity. He could feel the embers of hope rekindled, igniting passions long hidden under layers of doubt. "Let's keep this going," Carlos burst out, fueled by the excitement of the moment. "What if we turn this into a regular gathering, music, art, all of it? We could spotlight people's stories, give them a voice." Maria's face lit up, and she clapped her hands together, her unwavering support buoying him. "Yes, we could invite individuals from our community to share in it. Everyone deserves a platform to voice their experiences. I can help organize it." "Count me in," Jamal chimed in, enthusiasm radiating from his every word. "I'll create visuals to accompany the performances. This could grow into something huge." Carlos's heart raced at the thought. What had begun as a simple desire to connect through song now blossomed into a vision of community, creativity, and healing. They exchanged ideas, piecing together a blueprint fueled by their diverse talents and the wishes of hopeful hearts surrounding them. Days turned into weeks as Carlos, Maria, and Jamal rallied support from their community, hosting small gatherings every Saturday at the subway station. Word spread, attracting local musicians, poets, and artists eager to contribute their voices to this newfound sanctuary. Each week, the meetings swelled in numbers, drawing a more vibrant audience, eager to share their stories and talents. Carlos noticed that the physical act of coming together began to change people. The old woman who had previously wept began to share her stories of love and loss in song. The teenagers painted murals full of vibrant energy, and even Jamal uncovered the artist hidden within him. Each contribution wove tighter threads of connection. It was a symbiotic relationship where one's light fed the others. As the weeks went by, the rhythm of their gatherings became a life force, fostering deeper understanding and expansive empathy. Carlos found himself immersed in a sea of inspiration, each performance revealing another layer of the community's shared experience. He watched as fear dissipated and courage emerged, allowing him to reflect on his own transformation. One evening, as the sun dipped low, casting a golden hue over the subway station, Carlos took the stage once more. He felt nervous, yet exhilarated, a light bubbling within him. "This gathering has meant everything to me," he said, gazing at the faces in the crowd, the friends who had become family. "You've taught me that our stories matter just as much as our music. We're all interconnected, and every song sung here is a testament to that connection." He played a new song, one inspired by the stories he had heard and shared. The gentle melody danced through the air, striking chords of unity that moved even the most guarded hearts. As he sang, an unexpected silence enveloped the crowd, not out of reluctance but as an embrace of vulnerability held close, their collective experiences intertwined with his notes, each voice of the past echoing through the verses. When he finished, there was no immediate applause, only a breathless moment where everyone sat in the solemn beauty of recognition. And then, as if a spark had ignited, a thunderous roar of applause erupted, shaking them to the core. Tears streamed down Maria's face as she cheered, while Jamal leaped up, feeding off their collective energy. "Together, we've found a way to transcend pain and uplift each other," Carlos said, the significance of their journey igniting enthusiasm within him. "Let's continue to build this space, sharing our stories through music, art, laughter, and love. This is just the beginning." The claps and cheers grew louder, drowning out the fading light of the evening. They rallied together, united by the unwavering truth that each soul had a story worth sharing. As the sun dipped below the horizon, leaving behind a brilliant twilight, Carlos looked into the faces of those gathered, their joy infectious, their spirits unyielding. Together, they had transformed a subway station into a vibrant sanctuary of hope, reminding him that the journey forward is never taken alone, but in the companionship of those who dare to share their voices. A new chapter unfolded, one where music became the heart of their community, a place where every story mattered and each connection unraveled new possibilities, bathing them in the light of renewal and rebirth. As the weeks turned into months, the subway station continued to flourish as a haven for creativity and community. Under the flickering lights and sounds of steel and stone, Carlos, Maria, and Jamal delivered countless performances, bringing life to what they named Voices Underground. However, this vibrant movement, fueled by the collective spirit of the community, faced growing challenges. One bright summer afternoon, Carlos leaned against a pillar, guitar resting on his lap, staring at the empty space that had once been filled with warmth and laughter. There was an ominous tone that day. Officials had begun to impose restrictions concerning noise and regulations that threatened to dismantle everything they had built. Maria approached him, her brow furrowed with concern. "Have you heard the news?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "About the new regulations," Carlos replied, dread filling his chest. "Yeah, they say we're causing too much disruption," she continued, glancing around nervously, as if afraid someone might overhear. "If we don't act, they might shut us down." Carlos gritted his teeth in frustration. "Disruption? We're building a community. This is a place for healing, not chaos." "But we need to fight back," Maria insisted, her determination unwavering. "Let's gather stories from our supporters and show how important this space is." With newfound zeal igniting within him, Carlos nodded. They rallied community members to collect heartfelt testimonies about how the subway gatherings had changed their lives, from a teenager finding solace amid anxiety to an elderly couple rediscovering love through music. Each shared experience wound around them like a warm embrace, filling the subway station with hope. One night, as the gathering began, Carlos took to the stage, propelled by the energy of their purpose. "This gathering is about more than music," he declared passionately. "It's about stories, struggles, and community. We're all interconnected." Encouraging attendees to take the microphone, he invited them to share their experiences. A young woman spoke about overcoming her fears through the support of their community, while an older man recounted how the music had helped him heal after losing his job. Each testimony revealed not only the impact of Voices Underground, but also the spirit that had formed in its embrace. Their stories resonated deeply. Together, they organized a petition, gathering signatures from everyone who had attended their performances. They sought to show the city officials that the subway gatherings weren't mere noise. They were a vital part of the community's heartbeat. But as the preparations for an important meeting with city officials began, self-doubt crept into Carlos's mind. Anxiety bubbled beneath the surface, and the unrelenting whisper of uncertainty filled his thoughts. Would their combined efforts truly make a difference? One evening, Maria found Carlos alone, leaning against the cold metal of the subway wall, lost in thought. "What's going on?" she asked gently. "I can't help but wonder if this is enough. What if they don't listen?" he admitted, his voice laden with doubt. "Remember why we started this," Maria replied, her eyes glimmering with determination. "It's not just about us. It's about everyone whose story we represent. Together we can make them see the value of our gathering." Her words lit a fire within him. He thought of everyone who had shared their journey. Their collective energy could fuel more than just a performance. It could create a change that resonated beyond the subway walls. The day of the community board meeting arrived, and the subway station buzzed with anticipation, alive with the spirit of community. Friends and supporters flocked to stand by Carlos, Maria, and Jamal, affirming their shared purpose. As they entered the boardroom, the sterile and cold environment stood in stark contrast to the warmth of their comrades outside. Carlos felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him, yet he found solace in the faces of those who had supported him. This was not just about him, it was about the collective journey, a fight for connection and understanding. One by one, community members took the stand, sharing their stories, passions, and the reasons voices underground mattered to them. Carlos listened, heart swelling with pride as each voice rang out, weaving a powerful narrative of hope and resilience. With every testimony, he was reminded of the profound impact they had created together. When it was Carlos's turn to speak, he stood tall, summoning every ounce of courage he had. "We stand for more than noise, we are a family," he concluded, heart racing. "These voices matter. Together we've built a space where healing is possible." A tense silence followed. Would the city officials understand the significance of what they had forged together? Would they recognize the importance of their gathering, or dismiss it as merely background noise? The officials exchanged glances, some furrowing their brows, while others whispered among themselves. The room was thick with uncertainty. Carlos held on to hope, knowing that he had poured his heart and soul into every note he played and every story shared. Determined to keep their spirit alive no matter the outcome, Carlos looked around the room. His community was there, rooted in solidarity and bravery, a powerful reminder of the beauty they had created. Whether or not their efforts led to immediate success, he understood one truth: the connections they had forged could not be easily broken. As the day drew to a close, Carlos's heart swelled, fueled by the knowledge that they had all stood together in the face of adversity. They were not just musicians and artists, they were advocates for every story, every note, and every heart that had found a home in the subway station. The battle was far from over, but amid the challenges, a fierce determination to protect their sanctuary burned brightly. They would continue to share their truths, uplift one another, and sing until their voices were heard, because together they formed an unbreakable melody of resilience, love, and connection. The days that followed the meeting dragged on, each tick of the clock amplifying the tension that hung over the subway station. Carlos, Maria, and Jamal often gathered late into the evenings, their discussions punctuated by a simmering anxiety. The city officials had promised to make a decision soon, but the wait felt like an eternity, a shadow looming over their dreams. As they sat on the worn benches beneath the soft glow of the overhead lights, they discussed contingency plans. "What if they decide to shut us down?" Jamal pondered, concern etched in his features. "We can't let that happen," Carlos replied, his spirit unwavering despite the heaviness in his heart. "We've come too far to back down now." Maria looked at her friends, eyes alight with determination. "Maybe it's time to organize a bigger event. Show them our strength, our numbers. We need to remind everyone, officials included, of the community we've built." Inspired by her words, they began to plan a grand gathering, inviting everyone they had touched through Voices Underground. They set a date, spreading the word across social media, encouraging supporters to join them in a final show of unity. The night of the event arrived, and anticipation electrified the air. The subway station, usually a backdrop to their jam sessions, transformed into a vibrant tapestry of hope and resilience. Colorful posters lined the walls, each one telling a piece of their collective story. A sense of purpose thrummed in the atmosphere as musicians and artists set up their gear, ready to share their hearts once more. As people began to fill the station, the energy swelled. Families arrived with children, couples intertwined in love, old friends reunited, and new connections forged in the glow of camaraderie. Carlos looked around, his heart swelling with gratitude. This was it, the embodiment of everything they had fought for. Standing on the makeshift stage, Carlos raised his guitar, calling for silence. As the chatter faded, he felt the collective heartbeat of the crowd. "Thank you all for being here tonight," he said, his voice steady. "What we have created together is beautiful. Each note we play, every story we share, weaves the fabric of our community." The crowd erupted in applause, their appreciation palpable. The music began to flow, melodies of celebration and sorrow intertwined, recounting the emotions that had brought them all together. Jamal played a spirited song that sent waves of joy surging through the audience, while Maria followed with a poignant ballad that spoke of love, pain, and healing. As evening deepened into night, the subway station transformed into a sanctuary once more, a space filled with laughter, tears, and warmed hearts. But amidst their joy, a fear still lingered. The future remained uncertain. Then, in the midst of this beautiful chaos, Maria noticed a figure approaching the gathering. It was a member of the city council, someone they had not expected to see. The crowd quieted as the official stepped forward, uncertainty etched across their face. "Hello, everyone," the official began, a tentative smile forming. "I've been following the incredible stories unfolding here, and I've heard your voices. It's clear this community means a lot to so many." A wave of hope began to wash over those gathered, whispers of excitement rippling through the crowd. "I want you to know," the official continued, "that the board has reconsidered its stance. We value the contributions you have made to our city's cultural landscape. Therefore, I am pleased to announce that Voices Underground will continue under the condition that you implement safety measures and ensure everyone respects the space." Cheers erupted, echoing off the subway walls, a celebration of triumph ringing in the air. Carlos felt the weight of the world lift from his shoulders as he looked around at the faces illuminated with joy. They had fought for this, and together they had won. The celebration continued, music flowing late into the night, the sounds blending into laughter and tears of joy. Carlos and Maria shared a moment, their eyes reflecting a past strife and a future brimming with possibility. The road ahead would still have hurdles, but they had each other, and the unbreakable bond of community forged through music and stories. As the last chords resonated and the crowd began to disperse, Carlos held Maria's gaze, a silent agreement passing between them. They would continue to tell their stories, not just for themselves, but for all those who had yet to find their voices. A legacy steeped in resilience, love, and connection for generations to come. Together, they walked out of the subway station, the night alive around them. "This is just the beginning," Carlos whispered, and Maria smiled, knowing that indeed the melody of their lives would continue to resonate far beyond the walls of the subway.